We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and my guest today is going to provide some great information. What's happening? You know what I've learned in these conversations is everyone has something. I've learned in this 2-day event, getting to interview so many of the amazing Suzanne Evans speakers, and I'm excited to welcome to the program Heather Warren-Dombrowa. How are you, Heather? And thanks for stopping by.
I am good. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
Doing great. Tell me a little bit about your background and why you got into what you're doing.
So I'm a productivity strategist and momentum coach, coming to it with the idea of the focus on mental clutter. And I was actually a professional organizer dealing with physical clutter until I started to realize that for the majority of my clients, the mental clutter is what actually facilitated the physical clutter, and that was the root. So yeah, glad to be here.
Productivity. Oh my goodness. When you talk about productivity and keeping the productivity, how do you rate when a business owner for sure is not very productive? How do you kind of look at those things to see the productivity of an individual or something that they're doing it in the right way?
So I would think that oftentimes I find, again, it's the mental clutter that we're dealing with. We have so much on our plates. And as my clients come in, there's usually just too much going on, too many things that they need to do, too many things, I should say, that they think they need to do in order to be successful. And what I find is that they start to complicate the process, right? So when I'm dealing with that type of issue, again, it's to have them stop and take a break and find ways that we can just break down the processes or the vision so that it becomes more manageable.
That's key. Becomes more manageable and all that stuff and breaking down those things. So give me an example of what you mean.
Okay, so one of the first things that I like to do is actually have my clients do a brain dump. And it sounds kind of maybe childish or simplistic, but that's actually the key. We want the simplicity. And the point is that we have so much going on that we are trying to keep, all up here, that to actually get it down on paper and out of your head is usually the first step to actually seeing what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done, and how to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you move forward, the brain dump. And when I talk to you to do that brain dump, what do we find out? There's a lot of needless things we're doing.
Right. Well, there's a lot of needless things, or there's just really too much. That's that idea of having that that to-do list, which usually the to-do list that most of us are putting down has everything possible that could be done in a 48-hour period, but we think we're doing it in 24, right? So we're already making it an unrealistic process. So again, with the brain dump, you get that down. And then the next step is really to look at what you have and really, depending on your values and where you at that moment have decided you want to go, the direction you want to go, we start to pick out the things that makes the most sense in the order that makes the most sense. And so right there, you've gone to the next process of narrowing down that list. So it's not to say that you get rid of all all that you want to do, but you start to make it a much more realistic endeavor and something that is not going to keep you in that overwhelming feeling of not being able to, to get things done.
The productivity, not to get things done, and what to do and what to not. You look at it for businesses, productivity is profitability and what is needed versus what is not necessary.
Yeah, so it really depends. I would say that sometimes it's about the profitability. Sometimes it's really just about moving forward. I will have clients who have wanted to do something in their business or sometimes it's even in their home life. They're business owners, but there's something in the personal life that's actually the obstacle for them to move forward in the business world. And so what we look at is to decide where it is, I'm sorry, I just got lost. I just kind of lost what we were talking about. So can you just repeat?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
So I'm trying to remember where we're at. So that's okay. So you're talking about entrepreneurship and business owners. You talked about certain aspects. First of all, you talked about the fact of the matter that we're looking at specifically if it's profitability. It could be certain things that they're doing that that are just too much for them at this point, right? Is that where you were going?
Right, right. I just wanted to make sure that I was answering your question. I kind of
Yeah, you veered
forgot.
off. That's okay. No,
Um,
yeah, go ahead, continue.
yeah, so it's I think I was leading to that once once you've gotten that list, right? Um, it's now you've gotten the list. You've started to narrow down the list. I think we were talking about whether it was always about the ROI of the business. And what I was suggesting was is that yes, sometimes it is, but sometimes it goes more into the personal world, which is then affecting the person in their business. And so we're really looking at the individual and what they actually want to achieve, and to then determine what one is the vision, but also the obstacles, right? And then we'll sit and work at, well, how do we lessen those obstacles? And if we can't, well, most of the times we can lessen them, but for the ones that maybe aren't going to disappear, then the other tool is to say, okay, then how do we deal with those obstacles? Because the end goal is always to get them back into momentum and moving forward.
Momentum moving forward and all those different things. And you're so needed. Is time management some of the things in productivity that you see as a big lack? Is time management?
Yes, I would say that time management also, sometimes it's time management, or maybe oftentimes it's me management, right? The person itself. Again, just that idea that a lot of times people are putting so much on their schedule and they're not being realistic about one, the time it takes. So in that regard, some of the tips that we use is we actually have them do a comparison, right? You create a list of the things that you want to do in the time frame you think it takes you to do. And then the next you do that list, and then for a week you actually chart as you're doing those items how long it actually takes you to accomplish it. And that basically starts to help the individual really hone in on a reality check, right? They start to lessen the load, right? You
Yes.
start to prioritize what's really important. Because yes, there are lots of things that we can be doing, right? If we go online, there are lots of programs, there are lots of, whether it's the social media, there are lots of tools that we can be using, but the reality is that we can't use them all and we can't do them all at the same time. So it really is about picking from your values what's most important, and most important for your immediate goal of where you want to go.
All right. So Heather, where can people find information on you? You're so needed out there today. Where can people find it?
Thank you. I love to have a conversation with people. So I would tell you to just reach out to Heather at simplifythemission.com, and I will get right back to you.
We appreciate it, Heather. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.